and spend 25 quid on your ticket and 25 quid on beer. Maybe spend 20 quid on a T-shirt from the club shop. I don't know. If you can afford to help your clubs, I think people should afford to help the clubs, because the clubs do underpin the communities around them, and I do echo those comments that people have had. And the community game actually is what David Cantrell has talked about, Tim, in what he sent in to us.
Yeah, he said, Amy McManus's assertion that the very existence of our sport is on the line because of the lurgy is ridiculous. Individual clubs' existence might well be, but most, indeed almost all of rugby league is in the amateur game. That's the vast majority of clubs, of players, of officials, of matches played. Amateur clubs won't be affected anything like as much as professional ones will be by a long break or even by a completely cancelled season, as they have hardly any wages to pay, with almost all their staff being volunteers who do so purely because they love the game. I suppose it's possible the RFL itself could go bust. I have no idea what their finances are like, or they understand they're not terribly robust, but still that's not the death of the sport. A new governing body can be set up very quickly if clubs want one. Why, I think I remember a story about a few clubs meeting in a hotel to do that back in the day.
Yeah, of course that happened, and it might help us. I would say get a change in leadership, but get a leadership from a governing body as well. As an option there. Alan, why don't you tell us what Alan Walker had to say on this? Because this absolutely blew my mind when I read it. It just changes the whole slant on things.
Yeah, get ready for this one, folks. You probably know there's a way that RL can keep going. It's probably too late already, though. If RL is or was clever, they could use the Bennett plan, i.e. take the players to a place and play the games there. However, you'd need all volunteers to go to quarantine, the players, the staff, medics, broadcast, camera crews, everything. Full quarantine away from friends and family for months, which not everybody can. Tested before and on the way in, plus all through it. It won't just be clubs or countries, it's just not possible. Some clubs would have too many players, others wouldn't even have a team. It has to be under the Super League banner or RFL or even a Hearns, or what about an SLP?
So basically it has to be under any banner.
Yeah. You need a draft like the IPL, even if it's whatever. You can even include sacked rugby union players. Who'd include rugby union players in their squads? Soccer players, etc. Oh my God, this goes on and on. You can get sponsors in, the bookies, pizza, kebabs, etc. It needs a location, distant but not too far, like a small island.
No, you missed the bit out. That's my favourite bit. Have food delivered, whatever, to the teams. Create or fabricate dramas. He wants it to be.
He wants to turn it into Love Island.
Yes, he literally does. So turn it all into a series. You could follow the training, tactics discussions, set training challenges, team building, getting bevied, the tattoos. You could call it something like Strictly RL Island. I'm an RL player, get me fucking out of here. Great rugby league bus stop, etc. The participants, the players, medics, etc. get a cut. They're putting it on, but the Super League / RFL get a cut too to distribute it to the clubs. It's risky, but I'm just throwing it out there, he says. I'm sure Elston listens. If not, your mate Baz can tell him.
Well, if Barry's listening and he has a direct line into him, then I'm happy to be fair, I could forward Alan Walker's email on to Robert Elston, but I don't think he'll pay attention. I think he's got better things to do. Right, let's move on to some other news and go strictly RL, but in a different way to Alan wants us to. Alan Walker, that is.
Sorry, I said strictly. It's just an inbuilt response.
Inbuilt response, right? Fair enough. We'll move on from all of that, and we'll get into the other news.
Maybe that's a question for the listeners to get involved in next week. Which RL player are we sending on strictly next season? Given there's they're not going to be many sports people around. It's our off season potentially. Who are we sending? Get in touch.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Get your suggestions in, guys. Right, in other news, Warrington prop Mike Cooper has agreed a 2-year contract extension with the Super League club. The 31-year-old rejoined the Wire in 2017 after a 3-year spell at St George Illawarra Dragons in Australia. Cooper has made more than 200 appearances for the club since his debut in April 2006 and is celebrating his testimonial season. Something, of course, you can go back into the SLP archives and listen to Sarah's wonderful interview with Mike Cooper from the start of the season.
A new governing body will have to take charge of Rugby League in Tonga following the Tonga National Rugby League expulsion from the International Rugby League. Following the fallout last year between the governing body and players, Tonga pulled out of the World Cup Nines and the international series, including the Great Britain Tour. A deal was struck between the players and the organisers, which saw them compete under the banner of a Tonga Invitational team, where they secured famous wins over both Australia and Great Britain. The TNRL has been suspended since October, but their permanent expulsion from International Rugby League has now been confirmed following a special general meeting of the IRL board. And Tom Andrews got in touch on this one and says, what a shame politics can get in the way of an emerging nation, typical of Rugby League, really. It's good to know some things are continuing as normal.
Yeah, I think they'll get something sorted though, won't they?
I'm sure they will.
Right, okay. And some more news, actual news. Ben Failer has been reinstated as a Super League referee after an internal investigation found that he had no case to answer following his suspension. The nature of the Rugby Football League's investigation relating to the 38-year-old has not been disclosed. And Tom Andrews also got on this one to say that glad to have the best ref in the league back in, well, whenever it's back. He's been consistently the best referee in recent times. Brackets just bombed a bit. Wonder if Silverwood will take back what he said on Twitter. Probably not. He says, to be fair, Silverwood says a lot on Twitter these days. Most of it garbage.
Yes. Much like the rest of Twitter.
I don't know what I've done. I've accidentally muted Paul, so you'll have to unmute yourself, Paul. But London Scholars long-serving Chief Executive Ian Hector McNeil and Chairman Terry Brown have stepped down from the Super League One club. McNeil was a founder of the club in 1995, whilst Brown has sold his shares to son Colin. With these changes, primarily as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Damn it! Even the real news gets coronavirus in it, according to the club website. Colin Brown will be the club's new CEO, and existing director Adrian Frayne will move into the role of chairman. So some changes there at a club that obviously those guys have been around since forever, and I'm sure we'll find a way to still be involved, even if it's not in such a direct role in the club, as long as the club can go forward in some way.
As long as Hector doesn't take up refereeing, because I've seen him referee, I think we'll be okay.
I mean, says the one.
Says me, yeah, exactly. Says
That's
me.
Saying something.
Yeah.
Paul, sorry, I don't know what I did there, muting you, but we have an and finally to talk about, which is a positive story, Alan.
Yeah, so former England and Leeds Rhinos captain Kevin Sinfield has completed his solo marathon in support of ex-teammate Rob Burrow, who has motor neuron disease. The Rhinos director of rugby mapped out the 26.2-mile route, which started in Saddleworth, nice and isolated, after the Manchester Marathon was cancelled.
That's a good story, isn't it? Paul, what do you make of Kevin Sinfield going out for a run on his own? Do you think that kind of matches what we're wanting to do these days?
Yeah, I think he's getting out and getting his exercise, but he was followed around by somebody on a bike as well. So there, as long as they were 2 meters away, I think we'll be all right with that.
But great work still making sure funds were raised and finding a way to do something special still in our difficult and extraordinary circumstances. That's for sure, isn't it?
I think it's great. I think he's obviously putting the training to do a marathon at some point. It's obviously been cancelled with everything that's going on. He's just gone, right, no, I'm going to do this. I need to raise this money. But a lot of people have given. I'm just going to go out there and put this hard slog in. And I take my hat off to him. He's done it at a really cold time of year as well, and especially up in Saddleworth. It's not the best of places in the middle of summer, so I take my hat off for him for doing it.
It's not the flattest of marathons anyone will ever run, is it?
Definitely not.
Good stuff. Right, okay, we're going to move now on to what we're not going to get for a while, and that is some actual live rugby league results to discuss.
Okay, so we move on to the last games we're probably going to see for a little while. They were still playing this weekend in the NRL. It was round 2, and we start with the Bulldogs 16, Cowboys 24.
And we had a fan viewing, of course, from the Cowboys fan, the Swiss cowboy himself, Carsten. He said, Bulldogs players look like they're immune to COVID-19. They couldn't catch it. Jason Taumalolo with halftime stats that most forwards would wish to have in 80 minutes. If they would have had a cowbell at the ground, it would have really had a Huddersfield feeling. Of course, we were playing behind closed doors all these matches, so that's where that one comes on. Actually, Jason Taumalolo made 340 odd metres in this game.
Freak.
Normally, the only time you see anyone get close to 300 metres is when they've had 2 interception tries. This is a bloke in the middle of the field. That is unbelievable.
Yeah. He maybe had a sense that he wouldn't be playing next week, so he did 2 weeks' work this week. But yeah, that's insane. It was the Dragons 28, Panthers 32. Graham played in this one.
Yeah, and Lee Whitnall got in touch to say the Dragons looked dead and buried early in this game. Somehow they managed to claw themselves back into it and then take advantage, only to throw it away in the end. Hope that doesn't end up being James Graham's last. His career in the NRL deserves a better ending than a defeat in an empty stadium. James Graham's on the decline, isn't he, guys?
He's not in the first flush of youth anymore, is he?
No. It's a shame. It is a shame.
It is. On Friday, a game that I think more of us saw, it finished the Broncos 22, the Rabbitohs 18. Herbie Farnworth played in this one and he played pretty well. And the one Burgess left in the country that's actually pulling on a playing shirt and not just sat in the stand, empty stand. Burgess ended up with 113 metres.
Yeah, good social distancing from the Rabbitohs coaching staff compared to all the other coaching staffs that were sat up in the normal coaches' booths. They actually sat outside and sat with seats in between each other, which was more sensible.
But would you want to sit with Wayne Bennett near you anyway?
Well, not by the end of this, no. Not when young Herbie Farnworth leaped and took that ball and managed to sneak the offload out. No, not at all. Lee Whitnall got in touch again. He said, 5 years ago, Herbie Farnworth was playing on the Newton Sports Club bottom pitch in front of 30 or 40 parents, siblings and a selection of dogs. He must have been dreaming of an atmosphere like that during this game. I thought he did well when he came on and in what was an enjoyable game despite the empty seats. And Mark Butler said, save this up all day, having kids in the house made watching live impossible. Bad juju. Brisbane will wonder how they didn't have the cigars out earlier on. South threatened strongly in bursts, but the general momentum was rarely with them. Disappointed for 80s fans that Corey Oates doesn't play with Ryan Hall. Strange too that Sam Burgess looks like the real coach of Souths. Yeah, we all sort of saw. I think we saw a bit of this one, guys, on Sky. So, what did anyone make of it, Tim?
Yeah, in some respect, Broncos just played very well, very systematically, and just went through and did very well. Rabbitohs just didn't really look there, and I'm surprised the score ended up as it did. To be honest, if you'd just showed me the tape of the game with no, I probably would have said that it would have been a bigger margin.
Yeah, the Broncos had way more of the game, didn't they? And the young half who they signed from Melbourne went off sort of midway through the first half, but that didn't really hurt them too much because they had Herbie to bring off the bench and get things moving around. Staggs went into standoff and was amazing.
Yeah.
Couple of great tries as well in this one. If we were doing our highlight moments, Milford kind of ran round the whole team twice to score.
And some lovely offloading as well. Certainly in one of those ones just after half time.
Well, was that the one that Farnworth caught it out wide and kind of flicked it back?
Yeah.
And then there was an offload to Staggs, who then went under the posts. Yeah. That was a good. Yeah, there was some great movement in this one. It would be unfair to let the Campbell Graham best Ryan Atkins impression go uncommented on, trying to claim a try where he clearly dropped it. He's clearly been watching Ryan Atkins at his best.